Folks, welcome into another edition of SportsBookReview.com's Roundtable. Look, the NBA action is not hot on the court. We don't know when it's even going to start up, but we have our resident experts here at SportsBookReview.com with Junior Brown and Jay Money to give some information in to say, hey, you know what? The NBA does get underway. We're going to be ready for it here. Let's bring in both of the guys here. I do have some thoughts on the NBA because if we look at it, I'm looking at the 76ers schedule right now. Jay, I'll start with you first. April 15th is their last game. That's 2.5 weeks away. It's amazing to say, can the NBA just get started? Can we get underway? And when we do get underway, what's going to happen? The first topic here for you, Jay, can we get underway? Is there a clearing? Do we maybe see a path to when we can get this back going?
Yeah, well, I think we can get back underway. Obviously, the whole thing is this virus going to slow down? That's the main focus there. Then when everything does get back to normal as far as the NBA, I don't think that we'll see the regular season finish it out. They'll probably go straight to the playoffs. All the teams that's in the playoff picture right now, 1 through 8, that'll probably how they'll start, and they may even shorten those first couple of series. In my opinion, Donnie, that's what I would do, Junior. I'm pretty sure you might say the same thing. There's really no reason to start the regular season. Some of these teams, it's like Steve Kerr came out and said, hey, there's no reason for us to start back playing. Really, I mean, the season's over pretty much. I mean, obviously, these teams that's not making the playoffs, they don't really have a real shot. There's no real reason to come back, and, you're going to be pretty rusty as well. I can't say I hadn't really seen anything like this with the NBA, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see, in my opinion.
You know, Jay and Junior, we've all played sports in the past, specifically basketball, and we're all athletes in one way or another, maybe in a past lifetime. But when you're taking a look at taking time off, because I know right now, your levels have changed. You're not going to the gym. You're probably not working out as hard. And, of course, you're not going to get in that camaraderie with your teammates in the locker room and film time. Maybe for a couple of days that works. But, Junior, I'm going to start with you here. If we look at the NBA season, it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and say, hey, next Tuesday, meet me in Milwaukee. Let's get this game on.
Yeah, I think that they're not going to have any choice but to play a couple of regular season games and treat that as some form of a preseason, just to avoid injury and just to give the fans the best possible product, right? You can't simulate playoff intensity, and if you just come back from an extended period of time off and expect to be in a playoff mindset, that's just not realistic. I just think that it gives the opportunity for more injuries. And less quality play. Now, of course, Jay has a point that the regular season at this point is a formality, right? You don't want to play too many more regular season games because that's going to impact playoff positioning as is. At the same time, you can't just jump into the playoffs without maybe 5 games. I mean, I don't know what they can do because, like you guys both touched on, we don't know when this is going to start, and it's hard to imagine the NBA playing into September. August is probably like the latest that they can possibly play. Obviously, they don't want to compete with the NFL. So there's so many things to factor. And not to talk for too long, guys, but I just think every professional league is going to have to take the temperature of the room, so to speak. If there's a huge loss of life, are we just going to start playing basketball again and football again and everything again as if nothing? Like, look at Karl Anthony Towns. His mom's in a coma. He's supposed to just act like nothing's going on. So it's so many unknowns that, hopefully for our sakes as handicappers, they can get underway no later than late May, early June, because later than that, I don't think it's going to be good for anybody.
Yeah, we're going to hit that topic pretty good in just a few moments here. And if you guys obviously filling in on the channels watching, we do thank you for watching this content here because Junior and Jay have the most popular show with the NBA on sportsbookreview.com. It's nice to just get the guys back on the air and have some conversation and hope that we can put, a smile on it and say, hey, no, it's going to come back. But let's talk about the human element here, Jay. You're a hooper here. And even if you're playing, down at LA Fitness, down at the Rec, down at the corner, even high school or college basketball, these guys are used to playing with fan bases in the stands. You saw the one cut a couple weeks ago from LeBron James, not knowing the actual exact circumstances of why reporters asking him, hey, would you play without any people in the stands? No, the fans are why we play. I'm not playing without the fans. This might be a reality coming back, saying the only way the NBA can finish out a regular season or playoff run is if the fact that these guys are playing in empty gyms. They're used to playing in front of 20,000 fans. Now, all of a sudden, just with your teammates, trainers, coaching staff, and maybe 1 or 2 guys on press row to keep the clocks moving. That's an added incentive here to get back and saying, hey, no fans in the arena. But talk about, Jay, the players themselves running down on a fast break 2-on-1. When you're playing at the Staples Center, that crowd is rocking, waiting for a dunk. It's going to be silent when they score, Jay.
Exactly, and I mean, and from a point spread perspective, there's not really going to be any home crowd edge. There's not going to be any home court edge, no matter where you're playing. If there's no fans there, really, you're just two teams out there playing, really. So they might have to turn down the mics a little bit. You're going to hear some language that you might not want to, that you might not hear in the regular, you know what I'm saying, regular games. But I think as far as you saw LeBron James retract that real quick, like, hey, if it has to come to that, obviously a lot of these teams, everybody's missing out on money here. So obviously, which I mean, that's the last thing that they're worried about right now. Obviously, everybody wants to get back healthy. Obviously, some players have tested positive for it. So once they see that it's safe for at least just the players to play with each other, obviously, I mean, if we have to without fans, I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty sure everybody would be like, hey, we'll take that as well. Obviously, it look a little funny on TV, but we still get to see the professionals out there play. And hey, no fans, but still they play. I'll take that in a heartbeat, man. If they could start tomorrow, man. Obviously, the ones that's affected, if they have to wear the suits, masks, man, gloves, I'd still watch it, man. I'd still watch it. I must say I would.
No, I certainly hear your point on that when you talk about it, Junior, because, we're talking about it wasn't so long ago, it seems like months ago, that the NCAA was still playing in their conference tournament, specifically at Madison Square Garden in New York City when Seton Hall and St. John's were getting it on. And I got to tell you, the acoustics are still there. They only had a couple hundred people in the audience of an arena that fits about 20,000. I didn't notice it after 2 to 3 minutes. So do you think that, Junior, if these guys come back and maybe that first game's a little bit eerie, because also keep in mind some similar occurrences, because a couple years ago when the Golden State Warriors went to Madison Square Garden and played a game where they wanted to go old school, like old fashioned, what an NBA game would be in the 1950s. And I remember Draymond Green saying, there's no music. Like we're not even getting hype in this spot. Do you think that would maybe gloss over after a game or two, or maybe just say, you know what, I'm not used to this environment. I just can't get with it.
I think that it would take probably a game or two for them to get used to it. We've seen something similar in European soccer. Over there they've had issues with fans, fan behavior, so to speak, whether it's racism or fighting or whatever it is, and they punish teams by playing in front in empty stadiums, and they're playing in like 40,000 seaters with no fans in there. And honestly, just from having seen that a handful of times, the quality isn't really different. The standard of play doesn't even really drop that much. Now, how that's going to impact NBA players, it's kind of hard to tell. I would say that I'll tell you two teams it's not going to help: the Sixers and the Heat. The Sixers and the Heat clearly this season need their home court advantage because on the road they're absolutely horrible. I think that the Lakers, the Raptors, the Bucks, and I'll throw in the Clippers. I think those are the four teams that have shown that they can just win anywhere. Obviously, the Clippers have been more up and down because they had roster issues in terms of staying healthy, but I just think that those four teams can win anywhere. The rest of the league, I think they might struggle a little bit playing with no fans. But I just want to add one other thing, that they probably have no choice but to play with no fans, just for the simple fact that a lot of people are going to come out of this situation broke. Nobody's working. So people are not working. The last thing that they're trying to do is spend their money on entertainment. You know what I mean? There's only going to be a handful of the general public that can even afford to go to any kind of sporting event, let alone entertain themselves in any way. So just a lot of different things to think about.
It's a great point you bring up, Junior, because also, again, we talk about the human element, right? So is it just going to be like, hey, April 15th, snap your fingers and, hey, let's all gather, 25,000 of us, and watch this game together? Like, wait a second. Like a week ago, we weren't even needed to be, 6 feet within each individual person. That'll be an interesting thing to watch as well. But let's get to the crux of the NBA here, because we all hope the NBA comes back. One of the best playoff formats on the planet is the NBA playoffs and gearing up. Now, let's just say, theoretically, the NBA does get underway and they say, look, hey, you know what? We're going to take the seedings right now, 1 through 8. That's how we're going to play it. Now, if you're pushing it back, because you're already talking about NBA Finals, late May, early June, which you might extend to August, and Junior said earlier also, you probably don't want to go up against the other sports, but also taking a look at where the NBA comes into next year in 2021. You still have the NBA draft, get a free agency. These guys need their downtime, but just looking at it here, because you see load management during the season, Kawhi Leonard taking off games, maybe LeBron James will take off games. If we have one of these things, say, hey, we're going to condense it, and some of these older teams and LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard are going to play back-to-back games or just to fit a couple games games in before the playoffs or the playoffs in itself. I'm going to start with you first here, Jay. Trying to get some advantages in the playoffs because obviously the better team wants a 7-game series because the cream usually rises to the top. Could we see an occurrence of what we used to, maybe a best of 3 or a best of 5 in round 1 heading into the playoffs? And how does that match up between teams saying, you know what, maybe the Lakers need a little bit more rest, or maybe if we're taking a look at the Milwaukee Bucks, this is their time. Give us some thoughts on what you think of maybe an extended or shortened playoff spot.
Yeah, I could definitely see an extended. So look, we know a lot of times with teams like whether it's the 1 through 8 seed, a lot of times it's a clean sweep. We see a lot of these series. I mean, a lot of these 2 versus 7s. I mean, the Raptors versus Nets, that one's probably going to be done pretty quick as well. We know the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers and the Lakers, they're going to come out pretty easily. In my opinion, this is just saying what I would do. I would probably go to a 3-game or 5-game series at the most for the first 2 rounds, and then obviously for the conference finals and for the finals, you got to have those 7-game series out there. But I could definitely see the first 2 rounds definitely be shortened, in my opinion. And teams like the Lakers, I mean, you got LeBron James, man, that's getting all this rest here. You got some teams that was a little banged up. Now they're getting rested. Like you say, the Clippers, they could go full throttle now, a lot of these teams. But I could see what Junior is saying there, maybe playing a couple of regular season games, but some of these teams are just not interested. I just couldn't see it, man. I couldn't see it. I could see them going straight to the playoffs and obviously have to fit in as much as they want. People are still going to watch the playoffs. They'll get a lot of good ratings. As far as the fans, I couldn't see that being a possibility. They would damn near have to give out free tickets or something. Like Junior said, a lot of people are hurting right now, man. A lot of people don't, so you got to save your money, man. A lot of people don't, don't save it though. So we'll see. But I'm just hoping for anything to come back, man. Whatever, hey, y'all do 3-game series, I'll take that, man. But I could see a couple of 3-game series or 5 at the most, and then you definitely have to get those 7-game series for the conference finals and for the NBA finals.
Absolutely. And taking a look at this aspect from it here, Junior, obviously money always comes into it. And we did see that the NBA players will be paid through the first of the month, which is April 1st. Look, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Missing game checks and missing money that you expected to come and hit your bank account, when that doesn't go through, sometimes that pressure does ramp up. And also from an owner's perspective, I mean, they're catching a lot of heat. We saw in the Sixers saying, hey, we're going to furlough guys and not pay them 20%. Joel Embiid steps up and says, wait a second, I'll pay the $500,000 and we'll extend this. And then, most of these teams are caving, but owners don't like to lose money. Players don't like to lose game checks. And we're talking about maybe an extended playoff run where if you are the Lakers, you're saying, hey, you know what? We have a lot in payroll. We have a lot of startup costs. We really wanted to see our team go all the way through to the NBA Finals, get all those home gates, which might not be there economic-wise. Does that put any pressure on the NBA players or the NBA teams to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we extend this back? Why don't we even push this back till late August? Let's get as many gates as we can to try to recoup some money. Does that play a part in this, Junior?
Absolutely. I think that it's one of the main reasons why the NBA switched from 5 games to 7 games in the first round. I think it was like 15 years ago or whatever the case might be. And another thing that I think is that these 5-game series, and even Jay mentioned a 3-game series, it just leaves too much room for a possibility of an upset. As much as we as neutrals love upsets, the powers that be don't. The NBA doesn't want Utah to beat the Lakers. They don't want the Grizzlies to beat the Rockets. They want the best teams to be playing in the late rounds because the NBA is a star-driven league. That's of all the professional sports, that's the most obvious, right? The NBA is built around the superstars from each team, whereas the NFL is the ultimate team sport. So that being said, just financially and the possibility of upsets, I don't think that they can. I think that the finals has to be 7 games, and Jay had a good point. Even the conference finals are going to have to be 7 games. What that means for the first 2 rounds, I guess we'll see, but they're going to have to shorten it on some level. Maybe 3 games first round, since there's really usually no upsets, and then 5 games second round, and then 7-7. I mean, they're going to have to get pretty creative because, again, time is definitely not on their side.
You're absolutely right, Junior, because you take a look, even if you looked at NCAA standards, like we all like upsets, but then we're saying, wait a second, if the Milwaukee Bucks got knocked out round 1, it'd be really cool to watch. But then by round 2, you're looking and saying, boy, I wish the Milwaukee Bucks were back in here because I would really enjoy to see them maybe play the Lakers in the NBA Finals. It all happens. It's crazy the way it goes down. I could talk NBA all day with these 2 guys here, but obviously we do have a time constraint that we use. We have a lot of good stuff planned here at sportsbookreview.com, specifically in the NBA with both of these guys. They'll be back on the channel appearing on videos here, right here on the Roundtable. We'll do it up. For myself, Junior, and Jay, thanks for tuning in to SportsbookReview.com's Roundtable. We'll bring you the NBA, all NBA aspects right here at SportsbookReview.com.